Hey, in today's tutorial we're going to be showing you how to create character animations like this inside of Adobe After Effects using the free plugin Duik. All the project files and assets are in the description below if you want to follow along, otherwise let's get started. So we've got our project here ready to be set up for rigging. So we're just going to be focusing on the arms and the legs, so let's just turn everything else off. These are both duplicates, so the right is going to be the same as the left, so really we don't need these either. So let's just turn those off as well and just focus on these two. I've only just kept that visible just so I can roughly remember where that is, but we'll turn that off now. So the aim of the game here is just to create some circle joints where these are going to bend. So we're just going to eyeball where these would be for each section. So we're going to have 3 for this. So we're going to have the shoulder, the elbow, and the wrist. So like I say, you can just sort of look where it feels like it should bend and then just place them there. I've used a bright magenta color just so that it's really different to anything else and it's just a bit easier to see. We're going to make sure to label our layers and stack them properly because when we're doing character animation, the layer stack can get really complex really quickly, so we're just going to do our best to keep things nice and simple. So we're going to have this named right shoulder, and then this one's going to be right elbow, and then this one is right wrist. And what we're trying to do here is we're going to basically try and separate these so that we have a layer of this, which will be the shoulder, and then here, which is the forearm, and then this is just the hand. So we just need to neaten some of these little bits here. So you see this circle's overlapping slightly past the artwork. So what we're going to do is we're just going to command click that just so that we can get that circle, and then we're going to clone stamp the rest of this in. We're working in a style that doesn't really mind it being a bit, these imperfections sort of add to the style. So you can be a bit loose with what you're doing here. So let's do the same for the elbow. We're just going to zoom in. There's a couple of bits that just need filling in. Same for the wrist. So I'll just leave those in. You can barely even notice where you've changed it. Cool, so we're going to command click the shoulder and the elbow, and then using the selection tool, we're going to shift click everything outside. So you can sort of connect where the circle is at its thickest. And then we're just going to duplicate that bit, just so that now we have this separated right shoulder. We're going to label it because we're not savages. We're going to elbow wrist, so that's just command clicking those again. And then we're going to shift and click these. And then we're going to duplicate those again, and now we have our forearm. In the layer stack, we always want to make sure that it's matching the same as we set here. So shoulder, elbow, wrist. So we can hide those for a second, select the wrist, shift, and then duplicate. And so then now that first arm is done. And just to give you an example of what we're doing this for, if we just get the transform tools up here and just move our anchor point here, which is what we're going to do inside of After Effects, it's basically just getting it so that we can have these perfect bends. And if we select both of these and move those, we can get these natural bends. They sort of look a bit silly, and that's what the style is really, but it's just at least you don't get any breaks inside those circles. So let's just go over that again by doing the same with the leg. So we're going to do the same exact process. We're going to do 3 different joints. Here they're just named differently. So we've got the thigh, we've got the knee, and then we've got the ankle. So again, we're just sort of eyeballing these. Where they're at their thickest, that's where we're going to put our circle. And then if we do need to fill in any gaps, then that's fine as well. Okay, so we're just going to drop the opacity for these a little bit, just so that we can see what's going on behind them. And yeah, again, it's this thigh that is the issue. So we're going to command click that on the leg. Actually, we're just going to get rid of these so that we don't clone a crazy magenta sheep. And then we're just going to alt to select and then just click around just to fill in those little gaps there. And then we're going to do the same for this one. It doesn't really feel like we need a lot, but we're just going to fill in that space there. And then, yeah, just do the same for this one. Okay, and then we're just going to make sure that we name these layers because I forgot about that the first time. So we're going to have right thigh, right knee, right ankle. We're going to do the same bit. Oh, actually, sorry. We're going to Command Shift I once selected that because there's a little bit of leg. Let's just pop it out there. And so we're just going to select these bits. So we're going to go thigh and knee, and then we're going to go Shift and click round just those bits where it connects. And then we're going to duplicate that thigh. So we have that section isolated. And then we're going to go knee and ankle, Shift click here. Right, shift. And then we're going to get the ankle, we're going to shift click those. And then we've got right foot. Okay, so we've got those set up. And as I'm sure you've noticed, these are both duplicates. So they're just flipped versions of the same thing. So all we're going to do is just use that as a bit of a space reference. I'm going to grab those, make sure everything's selected, duplicate those, flip them over. And then we can delete the old version. Same for this. Select them all, flip them over, and just delete the old version. Okay, so I'm just going to rename all of my layers here, which I won't subject you to, but I hope that you will all do the same. Okay, so now that we've duplicated those, I've just renamed them all so they're definitely on the left side and we don't get confused. And I'm just going to turn on all of these last little bits. Just double check those bands. Move that very slightly just so that they don't get messed up along the way. And that looks fine. And then this is ready to go inside of After Effects. Okay, so now we're inside of After Effects. We're just going to do a bit of housekeeping just by color coding the bits that we need here. So every limb we're just going to do to a different color. And this just helps keep things really neat and tidy on our desktop. And just means that we can find things a little bit easier in a pinch. So it doesn't really matter what the colors are as long as they are different. So usually just make sure that each bit you're trying to animate together is lumped into the same color. So we're going to pull these wristbands over here. So we can go ahead and link that wristband to the forearm here. And same for this one. So we're just using the parent tool there. And let's just lock these two layers because we don't need those for now. And we can just focus on these bits. It's a great tip to just, whenever you focus in on a huge animation, just isolate the bits that you need. Otherwise it can get really confusing really quickly. So let's open up Duik and get this arm rigged. So I'm just using the latest version of Duik, which is Duik Angela. This is a really powerful script with a huge amount of tools inside it. We're just going to be skimming the basics here. So we're just going to be using the bones tool to create a little rig for our arms to move around. So we're just going to be using the default humanoid, and then we're going to be clicking on the arm. And what it's going to do is it's going to spit out these bones for us that are going to act as the structure for this rig. So making sure that snapping is connected, all you just need to do is make sure you line it up with the joints that you created before. And you can see that it's created as it shows the bounding box on the circle. And then we can do the same for all of these. And then we're going to pull it down there. Now, we just need to get this closer to this section. So let's make these blue again. Now we've got the bones linked to those center circles. We don't actually need these guides anymore. So let's just hide those for now. And we're going to just link our sections to the bones. So the shoulder, goes to the arm. The forearm, and then the wrist goes to the hand. And then we can just click the arm and then shift click to the top. And then we're going to just go over to links and constraints. And we're going to use the auto rig feature. And it's going to spit out an IK rig for us. Okay, so now we have some pretty simple basic movement. Obviously, if we go too far, it's going to break. What I usually prefer to do is hide the auto stretch. And so then it can't really bend past where it feels natural. But you can see we're getting the sort of silly movement that we like to see in these sort of mixed media animations. And so let's just clean this up a little bit. So this icon can be adjusted. So I'm just going to change that very slightly just so that it follows the direction of the hand. And we're just going to drop the opacity to about 50. We no longer need to see these bones that Duik has created for us anymore. So let's just hide those. And what we're going to do is we're just going to get in the habit of using shy layers as well, because these we just do not need anymore, but it's still good to have them there. And then now, in fact, we can do that for all of them. So now what we have is just this one layer that's the controller for the arm. Okay, so we're going to go through the exact same process with the leg. So we're going to go over to here, we're going to get our bones, going to humanoid, and we're going to go leg. And we're just going to make sure that snapping is still on, and we're going to connect the top to our thigh. Let's just move these down to the legs, and then just to make this even easier, let's just solo these joints with our bones, because otherwise the snapping is going to take into account all these other bits. And then the foot we can do here, and then let's just see here, go like that. So I'm just going to have to isolate just that, because I know that that's not, here we go. Oh, there we go. So I have to hide this again now, and then hide that one as well, just to make sure that we can get this right. There we go. Okay, and now we're going to just color those just so that we know that they're correct. And then we're just going to go through the same process of the linking. So let's just make sure that we get rid of these first. So that they're our previous joints. We don't need those anymore. And then we're just going to make sure that the thigh links to that thigh. The shin links to the calf. The foot links to the foot. And then we're just going to shift and we're going to click that. And we're going to use the links and constraints to generate us an auto rig. So it's just going to take a few seconds to build that for us, and then it spit out our rig. So here the direction is not going in the one that we want, so let's just change it up here in our effects controls. Instead of 100, we're just going to go to -100, because now when this bends it's going to go outwards, which looks more natural for what we want. Again, I'm just going to change this very slightly just so that it feels a bit better for me. I'm just going to drop the opacity and change the orientation, and then we're going to bring this all down to us. So you can see it's already shied some layers because it's created some more, but we're just going to shy some more because we just do not need to see these. Sweet. So what we're going to do is we're just going to hide those and we're going to shy them. So what we're left with is just this one layer that's driving it. Because these compositions can get so big, you just want to hide and streamline the process as much as possible, so you're left with as few things to keyframe as possible, and that really makes the whole process a lot easier when you get into animation. Okay, so I've just followed that exact same process just to do the left arm and the left leg, and I've just hidden everything, so now we have a super clean layer stack, which is always nice to see. And so we're just going to finish this rig off by just connecting the final few bits together. So headband can obviously go to the sheep's head, and the main thing that's going to drive this movement here for us is the body. So we're going to connect the sheep head to the body. The barbell, where's that going to go? Yeah, the barbell is going to go to the body as well. And then we just need to unshy these layers and find our arms. So the top of the arms aren't going to be connected to anything, so we're just going to connect all of those and the thighs, and then they are going to link to the body. So let's just hide those again. Cool, so now that they're all linked, we can just turn off snapping, because that's going to create some annoying little movements for us, and we can just see that, I mean, I just love stuff like this, it just looks so stupid. But we can see how this is going to work, and especially for us, we're just going to highlight this rig with some really simple movement, which we can already show is just going to be this simple up and down to show him squatting the barbell. Okay, so let's start adding some animation to this. So we're just going to be having a down movement where he's lowering into the squat, and then he's going to ping back up, and then I think I'm imagining the barbell sort of bouncing a little bit on his shoulders as he just settles. So we just need to move around what we've got to set him up into that pose. So we'll bring the barbell down to just above his neck where it would rest on his shoulders, and then let's just lock that again, and then we just need to move his hands to fit. So we need to do a bit of moving around with our layer stack here, because the forearm and the hand here need to go in front of the barbell. So let's just get these into position first, and I'm just rotating the hand so it looks like he's grabbing it. And I think all we need to do is just unshy these layers and we just need to grab the actual Photoshop bits, not the shoulder, because the shoulder needs to stay behind the body here. And I think we just need to drag these all the way to the front. Yeah, that's right. So let's just do that for both hands. Everything but the shoulder. Put that in front. And then shy them again so that we don't need to see that horrible mess that we've just created. And yeah, so I think what we want as well is we want these arms to attach to the barbell. So now what we can have is we have the body which moves, but we also have the ability to move the barbell up and back and forth, which we're not really going to do for this, but we will get a little bit of extra movement. And what I'm going to do just quickly for this barbell, because the actual comp is just way too big, I'm just going to press Y and I'm just going to pull that anchor point to just be the middle. So that if I do want to rotate this, it will affect the rest of the movements. Okay, so let's just try and do a quick little animation and see where we get to. So I know that this is going to be set to some music, and I've actually already gone through with my music and found out where the beats are, the key beats. I know that every 46 frames, I'm on a 60 frames per second comp, every 46 frames we're going to need the movement. So we're going to have down, up, and I'm just going to do those 2 keyframes and we're just going to loop between them. So let's just set those up now. We'll do here and then we'll move to 46 frames. And then what we're going to try and do is just see how far we can bend this rig without it looking too janky. So then we've got that there, and then we'll go to 92 frames and we'll bring that pose back up. And then what we're going to also do is bring down the barbell as it's at a lower pose, and we're also going to bring down the head. So we'll do the same thing. We'll see how low we can go here before it looks terrible. So maybe about there. And then let's just copy and paste those top movements. And we're just going to set an expression for those to loop. So we're going to alt click that stopwatch and then just type in loop out. And we're just going to copy and paste that to the rest of them. So now we have this really simple movement that's going to go to the beat of the music. I want this to be quite a snappy movement so that it times well with the music. So I'm just going to go up here and just adjust my easings so it's at 95%, so it will really snap back and forth. So I've just trimmed the timeline here just so that we don't have to render loads of extra stuff. And you can see it's working pretty well. So let's just try and make this a little bit more interesting. So let's try and add some rotation to that barbell that we were talking about before. So I think there it won't have any. And then I guess as it's lifting up, we're just going to add maybe a little bit of rotation to the side so it just shows how much he's straining to get that. And then maybe -2 here so that it's only really straight as he's low. It dips up. Maybe that needs to be a bit more in the middle. And these don't need to be super snappy because otherwise that will look really weird. So let's just put those on a simple easy ease and let's just see how that looks. Oh, it's a bit too rotated there. Yeah, okay, so let's just dial those down back. So it's just -1. So there, and 1 here. What I find works with character animation is building that key made movement and then just adding and layering up little bits, little nice flourishes to really make the movement feel alive and make it feel authentic. So we've got this main thing down and we're just going to try and add to it so it feels a bit more realistic. So there, it still feels like that head needs to come down a bit more to me. And in fact, I think what we're going to do here is we're going to unshy some of these layers and we're going to get these arms back so we can add some movement to those. So we're going to find those here. So we've got the arm, and let's do the same for the thighs as well. So let's make those visible, unshy them. And we're going to do the same thing. So we're going to add a position keyframe here, here, and here. So when it gets down to the bottom, we want these legs to go up a little bit, just so then we can bring this body a little bit further down, because I don't think we want these to go past that 90 degree, because then I think it's going to start looking like he's praying, and that's not really what we want. So let's keep that there, and then let's do the same for these arms. Let's see what works there. So do we want, probably that is about as far as we can go, and that's, I would say, about as far. So let's just copy and paste those there, and then let's add the same easing to all of those, and then add loop out to all of those as well, just so that I can use that later on. Cool. I think that's looking pretty cool. One thing I do like to do with stuff like this is to just offset the movements very slightly on the keyframe. So here we've got the body which is driving the main movement, and I would say that let's keep the arms and thighs connected to that because they're still part of that main movement. But the barbell and the head, I think we could probably nudge those forward by 1. And I think that that is going to mean that the movement might feel a bit more natural. It's sort of like the head is just very slightly following the movement of the body rather than it all moving at exactly the same time. Okay, so I just need to remember to put on that loop out for the rotation as well. Then I'll just double check that everything is looping. It looks good to me. Okay, so now we're back in this main comp. We're just going to add a little bit of polish to this so then we can call it done. So the background, I've already got a looping texture. Here I know that it loops at 6 seconds, so I'm just going to time remap that. Loop out. And we want the yellow that's on the overlay to catch this, so it wants to be white rather than black. And there you can just see a little bit of constant movement in the background, which is good. We're going to use this same looping texture to create a shadow. So what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate the sheep by Command D, and then we're going to move the anchor point of this down by pressing Y and then shifting it down, and then we're going to bring up scale and then just do 100 by -5. By -10 in fact. And so that means that wherever you put the anchor point, it's going to just reverse from that section. So we'll double check that this is correct, but I think it should be okay. And then we're going to just use a color overlay to paint it black. And then we're going to use that same looping texture from the background as a mask. So this black layer, we're going to track matte it there and reverse it. So it's a Luma matte reverse. So then it's just picking up those bits, and it's just faint, but it's just got a lot of texture, so it just gives it a bit of personality. So here it does look like we're going to have to bring that down. That feels about right to me. This is going to play super slow, but yeah, you get the idea there. Okay, and as we said before, we're just going to loop those brush textures that are on the body. So here we're just going to go to every half a second and change it. So I'm going to cut these layers by Command Shift and D, and then I'm just going to select them all, right click, sequence layers, and that just spaces them out. I'm just going to extend that one just a little bit because sometimes it can create some awkward loops otherwise. So then we're going to go to the body, enable time remapping, and then it was at 2 seconds that loop was. So we'll go to there, add the keyframe, Alt, loop out, and then we're going to just make sure that that last keyframe is deleted. And so now, if we just solo that, we just have this looping body texture. It just gives it a bit of personality. What we're going to do now is just add a turbulent displace onto that border. So we're going to do the size 5, and then we're going to do the amount 25. We're going to crank that complexity up to 5, and then we're going to just go to evolution options, alt click onto random seed, and then just do time times 2. So that means it's going to be twice a second, which times up with our other looping textures. Okay, so we're just going to add a little bit of levels to the sheep, so it's just slightly less grey. Just tweak those ever so slightly. And then we're going to change the posterized time to 12 frames a second. Now, the reason I animate at a higher frame rate and then go down is just because of the music. Usually I'll do things at 12 or 15 frames a second, but here, because you're timing to music, 12 frames is not enough often to make sure that you're timing directly to the beat. So it's easier to animate with more frames and then just add this afterwards. So then we're just going to add a little transform to this. So we're just going to scale it up to 102.5. And then we're going to just add a little wiggle to this as well. But we also want that wiggle to be a little bit jumpy. So we're going to add that posterize time first. So we're going to put that to 2 again, and then colon, and then wiggle in brackets 1, 5. So that is just going to move it around every half a second just to give it a tiny little bit of extra polish. And then to add to the look a little bit, we're going to add a quick fast box blur, maybe at 5. Let's try that. And then we're going to add a sharpen. So it just counteracts it, and it just means that you get a bit more bleed. Oh, that's way too much. So let's change that to 1. And then I'm actually just going to bring this down ever so slightly. So I'm going to create a null, and then everything that isn't the border or the background gets attached to the null. And then I'm just going to drop that down by, to 85, let's say. And then finally, I've already sort of timed this music out, so I'm just going to drop it over the top. And we're done. Okay, here's the final thing, fully rendered. And here's a few other versions made with the exact same techniques. That's all for this video, and if you want to take your animations to the next level, remember you can check out Animation Bootcamp on the School of Motion website. Animation Bootcamp is a focused course where you'll learn the principles behind great animation and how to apply them in After Effects. Thanks for watching. Remember you can check out the project files and assets in the description below. Cheers!